My name is Lee Agas, and my first guest here for today will be Afiq. Right?
Hey guys.
So in the first episode, you get to experience what BTB is all about, By the Billions, where Afiq will share his stories that concerning the cars and whatnot, which I don't want to give too much detail, but I will let him tell the story. Right? Let's start off with where were you born?
All right. I was born in Sarawak, land of the Hornbills, and I believe you're from the same place too, Lee. Correct me if I'm wrong. Miri, to be specific, 1993. That's when I was born.
Right.
Yeah. So I was in Miri, Sarawak, for about 3 to 4 years, and then we moved to Malaysia, Peninsular Malaysia. So Damansara, to be specific, and that's where I was raised for the remainder of my childhood.
All right. And then you continued your studies overseas, I believe?
Yeah, I did. So United States, University of Texas, San Antonio. Go Runners, that's where I graduated from.
Okay. Then you came back and worked in Malaysia, or do you spend your time working there before you come back?
I actually spent about a year working in Texas with Toyota Motor Manufacturing Texas. So I essentially built the Toyota Tundras and Tacoma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, more on that on another story. But and then I came back to Malaysia.
Okay. So basically, BTB, as you know, it's all about sharing their stories, which will connect to the vehicles that they own, that is high mileage. Yeah. Early on, before the podcast, you were mentioning to me that you have this one specific car that you kept since, not kept, but you treasure since young until this very day. So why not we start from there? How do you first fell in love with the car since you were young? How did it all started?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so it started when I was very young. So the car in question is a Toyota Land Cruiser Prado 70 series, which is parked outside. That's how I got here for this podcast.
Okay.
And I've had it since I was 3 years old, basically. My dad bought it. I didn't buy it, of course, just to be clear. Too short, too small. But basically the story, as my parents told me, was that every time they drove me to and from school, they were driving a Suzuki Swift, I believe, at the time. I would keep pointing out at a Toyota Land Cruiser every time we passed by the dealership. And at some point, my dad actually thought, hey, it's a good idea. We need to buy a Land Cruiser. And I'm sure, coming from Sarawak yourself, you know the road conditions there, the terrain. Very bad. You need a Land Cruiser or a 4x4.
Yeah, it's actually very ideal to have a Land Cruiser back then, because the road there is really bad, man. Especially let's say, because I'm basically from Sarike, so every time I have to travel to Miri to see my relatives, it will take us maybe a good 8 hours. Well, okay, what's the first car you drive? Regardless of the license, you get to move that car. What's the first car?
Okay, that would be the same car, the same Land Cruiser.
All right, interesting.
This was in a plot of land that my dad owns in Negeri Sembilan near the Selangor border, near Broga. Yeah, so we went to visit the land to pick up some fruits. I think we have durian trees on the land, and it was just me and him. And out of nowhere, he just asked me to, hey, let's switch seats. So I was thinking, I was 9 years old at the time, standard 3.
Okay.
I'm just gonna sit in the driver's seat and pretend to drive. Just twist the steering wheel, press here, and it came as a surprise to me that he just asked me, okay, hold on the shifter, put it into D, and then you press on the right pedal, hold on to the steering wheel, hold tight, and drive across the bridge. So it was a narrow concrete bridge with no railings on the side. You could fit exactly one car. And I slowly maneuvered the car across.
Do you get to visit this place after all this, when you grow up? The land is still there, right? You still visit the place, right?
Yeah.
How deep was it? Now that you go there, you are more adult. What is the depth of that bridge and the river?
And the river. Okay, so I actually visited the land this past Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's about, I want to say 1.5 meters from the top of the bridge to the surface of the river.
Do you feel would you be worried about your younger self when you go through that bridge?
I would be, knowing the value of the car now. I'm like, if anything were to happen, that would have been a very costly mistake.
Yes.
So yeah, but I was nervous then. Now I still double check, but I'm not as nervous as I was when I was like, I don't know, 1 meter tall. I was a short kid.
Okay. So when you get your license, then after that, you still drive the same car in West Malaysia, or?
Yeah. So when I got my license, my dad actually prepared the car for me. He asked me, what color do you want? So he had it resprayed to a different color of my choosing. And then later on, he even changed the engine to make it more reliable. Yeah, but at the time, I felt a little bit left out because all my friends at the time, the Myvi just came out. So they were getting brand new Myvis, Volkswagen Polo. They had nice sporty cars, reliable cars, and I'm getting this hand-me-down. That aside, I don't think it could have gone any better. Like, that was still the perfect first car for me. Like,
but
so many things I could do.
Do you feel like, oh shit, I'm driving this old car? Do you feel that, or you are very happy, like, whoa, I get to drive this car?
I was actually very scared because that car is humongous. And when you live in Klang Valley, there's a lot of tight parking spaces, narrow ramps. So I was very scared. Like, it would take me a long time. I had to check the angle of the car, make sure it's not hitting the left fender, the fender flares, whatever. And it actually happened a couple of times. There were so many scratches and dings on the car, but you learn through experience, right?
So in the United States, do you get to drive? Do you get to enjoy driving any other cars?
Oh yes, don't let my parents hear this, but the primary reason for me wanting to go to the United States was because of how cheap cars were and how well connected the car culture was. The first thing I did before even applying for the university was to go on Craigslist and look for second-hand cars. Like, what can I buy for this amount of money?
I mean, like, what's the one car that you plan to get?
Let me rewind a little bit. So my mom told me that if I were to study in Malaysia, the budget for my parents to buy me a second-hand car would be about 30,000 ringgit in 2010 money, right?
Okay.
At the time, you could get, I think, a Kalisa, Rodua Kalisa, Proton Wajah, maybe even a second-hand Myvi, like the apple green color, that time.
Okay,
the kind of color that they came out, right? Yeah. But if I went to the United States, the budget would be about similar. Yeah, but I was thinking based on what I've heard from other students who went, I'm going to buy like a minivan or a very old Honda Civic. But I went there and I looked it up. For the same price, 10,000 ringgit, because at that time USD $1 is 3 ringgit.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, good times. I could get a 2008 Ford Mustang convertible with a 4-liter V6 engine, and that was exactly what I bought.
Okay. Tell me more about the car. I mean, like, maintenance-wise, driving experience-wise, ownership-wise, was it hard to maintain?
Yeah, so I know a lot of Malaysians, they don't have experience driving muscle cars. Actually, I don't think it's even a muscle car. It's a pony car. It's a V6. It's not a V8, right? But yes, it drives like a boat. There's no handling whatsoever. You plan on going in straight lines. If you see the road starts to turn, and then you start panicking. You make sure your brakes are good. You're not going too fast. The car is all go, and that's basically it. Maintenance-wise, it's actually a fairly reliable car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ford is like a Toyota basically. It's very simple mechanically. There's not too many bells and whistles. But the thing is, I was a student then. I had no idea how to fix anything because in Malaysia we are so used to the culture of a simple thing, even a major thing, just send to the workshop and they fix it for you, right? So in the US, I found out that even something like an oil change could be very costly. Even just changing the alternator or battery. I mean, the battery one I could do myself. But timing belt is very expensive, let's put it this way, and that really put a hole in my pocket. But the modifications were cheap, AmericanMuscle.com, so I spent most of the money that my parents sent to me for food and rent on car parts. So it started with cold air intake, lowering springs, cat back exhaust. Yeah, but the car was a joy to drive, because living in Los Angeles, it's mostly traffic, so you don't have to worry about going too fast around the corner or anything, just go only.
What about your license to drive? Do you have to take an extra license, or is the driving license international, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, so for Malaysians actually, and I think the rules are still the same now. Basically, you can convert your Malaysian license to the US one. So all I had to do was take a driving test, like the actual sit-down driving test, and that's it. And in the US, it's different. So in the US, you can actually use your own car to do the driving test. So I bought the car first and I drove it with my Malaysian license because it's still valid up to 30 or 60 days, I believe. And then I just went to the Malaysia they call it JPJ, but there they call it DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. So I just parked outside there, waited for my turn, and a random guy came in with a clipboard, and it was so easy. You know how in Malaysia you have to memorize the road, you must do the 3-pointer, there's the bukit that everyone fails at. This one, he just sits in the car, he's like, okay, exit the compound, okay, turn left here, turn right here, okay, stop at the stop sign. And then he'll be like taking notes. And then, okay, just pull over here, okay, the side parking here, okay, drive back. Okay, that's it, okay, you pass.
Okay.
It's very simple.
After you finish your studies and then you come back to Malaysia, what would be your first car that you own with your own salary money?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
So the first car that I bought as soon as I got off the plane at KLIA would be a 1984 Toyota Starlet KP61. KP61. Here they call it the Starlet Kambing because I think the logo looks like the Tanduk Kambing. Something like that, right? It was very cheap, so I was actually not looking to buy the car. I didn't even know the car exists.
What was your first choice?
First choice was a KE70 Corolla.
Okay.
The DX model with the quad headlights. Because my great aunt, she has one. She doesn't want to sell it to me, so I'm like, okay lah, then I buy my own one, right? They were going for fairly cheap, and I was living in Seremban at the time. That's where my parents live, and I didn't have to travel far, so I just needed a car that I can learn to work on it myself, and at the same time it's reliable. I can have fun. Maybe like I want to drift, learn how to drift. I can maybe try that. But then the Starlet popped up for sale, and the guy is living like the next taman over, very close. So I'm like, hey, why not take a look at it? So I went to take a look at it. So the previous owner was a spare parts runner. That's an actual job. And he has so many JDM, Japanese Domestic Market goodies in the car. So like I saw Fujitsu exhaust, Silvia S13 lowering springs, coilovers in the front, adjustable high-low soft hard. What else? Silvia S15 convertible, the Varieta seats at the front for the front two seats, and the steering wheel, the AE86 twin cam 16 valve steering wheel, and that alone is worth about $1,000 on eBay, and the car is being sold for the same price. So in my mind, I'm like, you buy a steering wheel, you get a free car. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Directly bank in the money, and I bought the car and drove it home, and it's a very happy little car. Like let's put it this way, I love it.
Any fond memories of the car?
When I had to drive from KL to I think Semenyi or Lengging, Negeri Sembilan on Lekas, because my younger brother, he got into a car accident, and he was in a frantic, he was panicking, he doesn't know what to do, so he's just calling everyone, my mom, my dad, me, basically anyone who could come get there first, and help him out, because he's so confused what to do. And at the time, the car that I had with me was a Starlet in KL. So no choice, I had to get into the car, I had to go there as soon as possible, right, to help him out. I think he was panicking. He was really in a moment of desperation, and I'm just going to say that the Starlet is not a fast car. It's a slow car, it's an old car, there's so many rust holes on it. I've never even driven it fast, maybe like 110 speed limit, and then after that, it's mostly what they call lane kiri, even lorry overtake me. But on that day, it surprised me. It was raining hard from the Cheras Kajang Highway on Lekas. The car was doing 140, 150. I don't encourage speeding, but certain exemptions for certain situations. The tire grip, we had Nankang tires, Kangkang already 15-inch. The car was going. It's on a stock engine. It's not even modified. I mean, maybe like mechanically wise, it's not modified. Like just a Proton Wira carburetor, that's it. Like I was high beaming cars. The only cars that I couldn't high beam were the Hilux or the Velfires because they couldn't see me because I was so low, they can hear me. Like, hey, got car behind. Okay, sorry. Come. And I got there in less than half an hour.
Wow.
So I got there, and luckily my dad arranged for a tow truck. So I think the story was that right after the crash, 30 seconds after that, the long guy came with a tow truck already. Then he said, like he was calling me, hey, abang, suddenly there's a tow truck. Never mind. I'm like, hey, no. You don't want to do that. Like call the insurance. We have insurance. We paid for the tow truck service. We do that. Don't trust these people.
Was it bad, the accident? Was it bad?
I would say it's not that bad, but it was still devastating because the front end was smashed. So it had the full mark front end, which to find the parts again would be very expensive. So we just had to find another CRV bumper, and they had the parking mirror on the side, the mirror tanduk. That one was broken, and it's quite hard to find also. But even I found it's a different color, had to repaint again. Yeah, and then it was fixed, but it was still goyang a bit. So I had to spend a lot of money at another mechanic just to get things sorted out because it's a daily driver, and it's for my brother who's very young and at the time still a new driver. So you want to make sure that the car is still drivable without compromising its safety because even the airbags deployed.
Coming back to your Starlet, do you face any challenges like restoring the car, or do you just like make sure that it runs and you don't really like maintain it?
I treat it like how the Pasar Malam people treat their lorry, like it's a car, it's point A to point B, like you put in petrol, it goes, you buy out the road tax and insurance every year.
You really try the car.
Yeah, because I'm trying not to have too much emotional attachments to the car. Yeah, because I do want to restore it. I see the potential. It's just that the value of the car has not reached the point to where it's worth for me to spend a lot of money, time to restoring it.
All right. You are still giving it a chance lah.
I'm still giving it a chance. Malay people, they have the saying, simpan tak untung, jual tak rugi. So then until then, it's parked under the pokok pisang.
The next thing I want to ask you is actually your LC. We want to talk about your LC. You're still driving it right now.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the car.
Oh yeah. So finding parts for the car, it's been a journey. Let's put it this way. So you would think that this car, I want to say, is one of the most produced cars in the world. It's still being produced in markets like Australia, the 70 series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's so many variations. There's so many different engines that, it can really, like give me a challenge when I need to restore it. Like, for example, the mechanical parts, engine is 1KZ turbo diesel. It's fine. I can still buy brand new parts for it, wear and tear. But for little things, like interior, like cup holder or power switch window, this kind of stuff, they don't exist anymore in the brand new market.
Okay.
Right. Even aftermarket, they don't sell it anymore. Rubber seals, glass panels, all that, you need to find it from another car that's been abandoned or junked, and hopefully that part still works. And they cost a lot of money because the value of the car is rising. More and more people are restoring it rather than trashing the cars. So I've even had to fly to Sabah and Sarawak just to look for parts. I've flown to Japan just to look for parts, and I'm still participating in Yahoo Auctions Japan. I had to learn Japanese just to order parts online.
Okay.
Yeah, so much work.
Speaking of which, I would like to ask actually, when you were in the US, is there any group that you joined when you were in the US?
I joined a few groups actually. There's a few. One of it was the third gen 4Runner Mafia. So that one is for the third generation Toyota 4Runner. In Malaysia and Japan, it's known as the Toyota Hilux Surf.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Another one was GXOR. That's for the Lexus GX series vehicles. Here is the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, the 150 series and up. But the most notable club that I've joined was called a Redwood. It's not really a club, it's more of a community. It's online based and is to share passion for all things old cars, like 80s and 90s during the height of vehicle. That's when cars were the most exciting.
What did they do that is different and that pulls you into the community?
Yeah, so I've joined other clubs before, like let's say the Ford Mustang Owners Club. We all own Mustangs. That's not a special achievement, right? When you meet up, it's just who's got, what mods do you do? Or stage 2 remap, ECU tune, what's that? You have a manual? You have an auto? Why do you buy an auto? Manual is better, bro. And then, yours is a V6. Why you buy the V6? GTs are always better, what kind of exhaust you have on it? Mine's louder. Or your one is not so good, I think you should upgrade in the future. Yeah, so it's a lot of, there's too much comparison going on. It doesn't really feel like a very healthy community, right? With Redwood, they don't care what car you drive as long as it's from the 80s or 90s, which is the red period in the history of human.
Okay.
And you just want to talk about quirky stuff. For example, the Land Cruiser that I have now is from 1991.
Okay.
But you would be surprised if I told you that it had not just power windows and power sunroof. At the time, it's still quite rare. There's still cars with the manual windows, but it also has electric lumbar support.
What?
Even cars, in this day, you buy a Nissan Almera, right? I think you still have to pusing the tombol,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, this one is like electric seats.
Wow,
It's quite luxurious. You know, this was in the 90s, and then Toyota came out with the Toyota Serra with the gull-wing doors. You know, you have the K cars with so many interesting features. You know, Land Cruisers with little mini fridges in the middle console. Like, who does this anymore?
Yeah.
You know, like back then it was a race. You know, who can design the coolest car, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what we're celebrating.
So this Redwood community, do you guys like gather physically, or it's like more online thing?
Yeah, it's mainly online because that's the best way, right? Social media is the best platform that you have there to connect people from across the planet. But they do have gatherings in different cities, once a year, sometimes twice a year, I think, depending on how big it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just meet up. So you don't have to feel inferior. You know, you could show up in a 1984 Volkswagen Rabbit, and somebody's going to come to your car and be like, "Wow, that's such a cool car, man! Like, tell me more about it."
Yeah.
Like when the car was manufactured by Volkswagen, was marketed, they did not intend for it to be a cool car.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an economical car, good for your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here along, 20 years later, somebody comes up, wow, this is the coolest car ever. It brings so much memories.
Oh, interesting. So I guess that's the different thing. I mean, like the community difference between whatever you're experiencing over that side and whatever you are. What about Malaysia? Do you get to join any community or any groups?
In Malaysia, no. I mean, I would love to, but I think to me it's just it's a time factor. Now I'm an adult, I'm working. I just don't have time to join the groups anymore.
Yeah.
And there's one group that I'm affiliated with, is the Mercedes-Benz W203 Owners Club.
Okay.
But I mean, no offense to you guys, but it's a lot of older gentlemen in the group. I just don't really fit in well.
Okay. The thing that actually I want to ask you is like, why your love for the high mileage cars is like, what brings you like closer to those types of cars?
To me, high mileage is a testament of the car's quality, engineering. Like, this is what the engineers at Toyota, Honda, or whatever manufacturer that made that car wants it to be. Like, it's a car that keeps on going on and on and on.
Yeah.
Like, it only dies when you want it to.
Yeah.
Like, you don't treat it well.
Yeah.
But you put in labor of love. You take care of it like a child, basically. It's gonna grow.
So the last question I want to ask you is, can you remember what's the mileage on your LC?
Yeah, it's 378,542.
Yeah, it's considered high.
Yeah, it's I would say that's quite average, to be honest.
Oh,
but the
really?
thing is, the car, that's the mileage on the new engine.
Oh, okay, all right.
So on the old engine, I would say in total, the car has traveled at least 700,000 kilometers. And now that's the high mileage car.
It's great to hear that story. So I would like to welcome you to BTB, since you have a high mileage car.
All right, thank you. Where do I sign up?
Okay, Afiq, after mentioning so much about your driving experience and ownership experience in the US and Malaysia, right, I can safely say you are some sort of a collector, because you seem to like the story. I cannot finish one. I ask one. Oh, I keep on answer. So like, I don't want to say you're hoarding all the collective cars, but more to a collector, because you are the type of person I see as like, you appreciate all those small unique things in a car. Okay?
So I wouldn't classify myself as a car collector, although it seems to be heading this way, because I think there's far bigger collectors. Like
True.
JP Chin, for example, he has a whole museum dedicated to his collection. My cars are all driven. They all serve some kind of purpose and utility to my life or my family's and my friends as well, to an extent. You know how BTB, the podcast, it's another mile, another story. Mine is another car, another story.
Okay. So one more question I want to ask you is, since you are in the US, for how many years you are in the US?
8 years in total.
8 years in the US. Don't tell me you just drive one car. I'm sure you have like a few more cars.
Oh, far too many. I lost count, to be honest. Yeah, but I've experienced all of them. Sedans, 2-doors, convertibles, 4x4s, minivans.
All right. Well, I guess that will be another day for us to tell that story.
Yeah.
So on that note, I think for now I think collector would sounds good. But
Yeah, let's go with that.
do you want to become a collector? Do you think so? Are you a collector?
Call myself a Hot Wheels collector because I do collect Hot Wheels.
Okay, all
but
right.
I collect cars now, but I don't really want to say car collector because it seems like I'm making a lot of financial mistakes, right? Yeah, so I don't know. We will revisit this in the
Okay,
future. Let's
all
not
right.
put labels.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's it, guys. This is the end of the podcast. Another mile, another story. So thank you for listening and see you in the next episode.